Hello friends, and welcome to the Hanged Man in the Moon. If this is your first time here, welcome. Thank you for coming. I'm pleased to meet you. If you've been here before, thank you for returning. I'm truly honored. Friends, if you are a returning visitor, you may have a lot of questions because for one thing, I'm not wearing the kind of clothes that I usually wear. And that might be purposeful. Yes, we're here to begin a Decan walk. Now, this really isn't the first video, but except for that brief, frankly, very poorly planned introduction video of what I'm doing and just an announcement of my plan, this is really the true start of the Decan walk. And I'm going to try and get this up onto YouTube at least the first day of the Decan, at least on the 21st for me here in Korea, and a little bit early for those of you in later time zones. Yes, so I'm probably, maybe even it'll be the day before the Decan actually begins. And we're doing a Decan walk. And I will tell you a brief outline of what you're going to get in this video before we get into it, yes? Just so you have a sense of what parts you might want to focus more on, and maybe there might be a part you want to skip, and that's fine with me. So I will also try to put timestamps in the description box so you can hop ahead to a part that is more in line with what you are interested in. So, brief outline. First, I'm going to give you a brief description, better than in the introduction video that I made, the announcement video, I should say, of what a Decan walk is and what a Decan is, and the roots or the nuts and bolts, briefly, of what we're doing and what I am using, what system I'm using. Then I'm going to give you a brief outline of information about the Decan itself. And then we're going to look at the cards. We're going to look at 3 cards from a Smith-Waite Tarot deck. And then I'm going to read a spread to help us unpack those 3 cards. So, in each video, after this one, what I will do is I will give a brief description of the Decan. We'll look at the cards, the tarot cards related to that Decan. And then I will pull a spread, a 3-card spread out of that Decan, those 3 cards, and we'll read those 3 cards. And if you want, what you can do is I will tell you what that spread is, and you can lay your own 3 cards on for yourself. If you're doing a Decan walk along with me, you can do that, yes? You can follow along. You can look at my description of those 3 cards and the Decan. And then when I tell you the spread that I have developed, you can use that spread or develop a spread of your own and let us know what you think might be a more meaningful spread for you. Yes, interaction in this space is going to be very welcome. And then between videos, hopefully before the next video, for example, this is ostensibly video 1. So before video 2 is uploaded, I will, in the community comments section, I will list out what I have noticed for myself during this Decan. And we can share there. What have you noticed? What things have resonated for you for this 10 or plus or minus day period of the chart? Am I making sense? If I'm not making sense, please let me know in the comments below, and I will try better to articulate my thoughts. Okay? So, friends, here we are. Let us begin. Begin with a brief overview of what this is that we are doing. So a Decan walk, we're going to be walking around the wheel of the year, the zodiacal wheel of the year, which begins in Aries. It begins either today or tomorrow, depending on when you see this video, or maybe yesterday, depending on when you see this video. It should begin on March 21st. Yes, March 21st. And what are decans? Sorry, I've got notes here. What are decans? Decans are a division of the wheel of the year. Now, a circle has 360 degrees. And the zodiac has 12 signs, so that for each zodiacal sign, we have approximately 30 degrees. Not 30 days, but 30 degrees. Yes? So, way back, the Egyptians noticed that there were a series of 36 stars or constellations or groups of stars which appeared on the horizon at different points of the year. And so they mapped them out, and they divided their wheel of the year into 36 portions of 10. Yes? And they named each of those 10-degree portions after what is called, what we would say a daemon, or maybe a demon, but not like the Christian demon, but a daemon, a spirit, an entity, a non-physical entity. Well, a lower god-like entity, yes? Now, what were these decans used for? From what I've gathered from my own research, the Egyptian astrology was not used the way that we in the West used astrology as predictive or descriptive, but rather they were time markers. So for approximately 10 or more or less days, 10 more or fewer days, one of those decans would be at the horizon. And then after those 10 days or so passed, another decan would start appearing at the horizon at, I think, sunset. Yes? So that was a way of marking time. Now, these daemons were also involved in magical practices, in healing, in as psychopomps, as helping the spirits of the dead move on to the next world. So they were active, and they did more than just timekeeping. But that was the idea. They were markers of time. They were part of our human interaction with the spiritual world. Whereas in Western, and Western also including Hellenistic Greek astrology, we use those ideas of the planets eventually to start thinking of what does that mean for the person born at this time, at this place in the world? And how does that inform our character or our future or our destiny or what's going to happen next week or when we should launch a video on YouTube, for example? Yes? Now, I don't know that much about Hori astrology to be able to do that kind of work, at least not yet. But those are ways that we work with astrology here in the West. But in the old Egyptian days, it was for magic, for ushering the spirits of the dead, and for keeping time. Yes? So then the Greeks met the Egyptians, and they thought, hey, this decan idea is pretty cool. Let's adopt it into our system. So we didn't adopt those daemons into the Hellenistic astrological system, but eventually we integrated that concept of each one of the zodiacal portions of the zodiacal wheel could be divided into 10 groups. Yes? So that's what a decan is. Here in the West, there are at least 2 different ways of understanding the divisions of time and the placement of these decans. One of them is more commonly understood, which is called the Chaldean system, which was what the Golden Dawn adopted when mapping the tarot onto the zodiacal wheel, especially for the minor arcana. There is another system in the West, Hellenistic Greek, astrology included another system of triplicities, which is what I'm using. Yes? So, just in case you watch my video and you have, for example, an excellent book by T. Susan Chang in front of you, and you say, what? That's not what it says here. That's why. Because T. Susan Chang is using the system which was adopted by the Golden Dawn, who also created the Smith-Waite deck and the Thoth deck with Aleister Crowley. But there is another system. And it's a system that was used by other tarot creators, including the Brotherhood of Light and C.C. Zane for their tarot deck. Yeah, Pappas, from what I know, Oswald Wirth. So there is another system that is very Western, and that's the one that I'm going to be using. Yes. So, that is just to tell you why maybe your book doesn't match what I'm talking about. But the system that I'm going to be walking with is the system of triplicities, which is going to begin with not twos, but the aces through nines. Yeah, the Golden Dawn mapped the minor arcana onto the twos through tens. I'm mapping it onto the aces through nines. Yes? That makes sense? Okay, so what is a Decan walk? Yeah, I told you briefly that we're walking around the zodiacal wheel, right? What does that mean? That means for each one of the decans, for a period of plus or minus 10 days, we will have a set of cards that we will think about, we will meditate on, and we will try to remember the ideas and the associations that these cards indicate to us for those plus or minus 10 days. And as we go about our lives in the world, we will open ourselves to noticing when situations or events or ideas, personally or in the world around us, including the news, match those ideas and those associations that we have pulled out of the 3 cards we are focusing on for the 10 days. Does that make sense? So, for each decan, I will pull 3 cards. Yes, there will be the central card which represents that decan. And then that central card will have a planet and a zodiacal sign, of course. And we will look at the major arcana card that matches the planet and the major arcana card that matches the zodiacal sign together with that minor arcana card for the decan, and see how they interact with each other, how they speak to each other, what qualities are emphasized when we look at those. We'll also take a glance at things like, let me back up just a moment to the major arcana. Now, if you've watched my channel and you know that I've done a series which I called Walking the Lines of Origins to Deeper Strata, yes, I explained there the associations that I am making between the major arcana and astrology as I see revealed in older recensions of the Sefer Yetzirath. And there are several recensions of the Sefer Yetzirath. There are more Christianized recensions of the Sefer Yetzirath, which is a Jewish mystical text, which assigns spiritual qualities and attributes to each one of the Jewish letters. The Hebrew letters. Yes? So, I've got a whole series explaining this on my channel. If you want to dive into that, please do. So I'm using my associations for the major arcana in this Decan walk as well. So don't let that throw you. And this, the Sefer Yetzirah that I am using is what is called the Saiya Gaon recension of the Sefer Yetzirah. Yeah? It's about a 10th century text, just so you know. That's what I'm using. The Tree of Life that I am using, and maybe I'll throw a card up here, or not a card, an image up here, is the Lurian Tree of Life, which is different from the Tree of Life that is used by the Golden Dawn. Because the Lurian Tree of Life is, at least from my research, the earliest, clearly drawn Tree of Life that includes the Hebrew letters on the paths from the Sephirah, which means there are 10 Sephirah in the Tree of Life. I think I've got to put a picture up here. Yes, there are 10 Sephirah in the Tree of Life. You see those circles? Those are Sephirah. And the lines between all of those circles are paths, and there is a Hebrew letter on each one of those paths. Yes? And those Hebrew letters are associated with tarot cards. Yes? So, for example, for me, Aleph, which is one of the mother letters. Now, this is a whole discussion of how the Hebrew letters are divided into 3 groups. There are mother letters, which are referenced to the 3 of the 4 elements, air, fire, and water. There are the double letters, of which there are 7, which are associated with the 7 planets, the 7 visible lights in the sky, I should say. Yes, they're not all planets. One of them is the sun, one of them is the moon. Yes, but the 7 visible lights in the sky. And then there are the 12 single letters, which are associated with zodiacal signs. Yes? And so, this is the tree that I am using. And you can see that, for example, Aleph, well, I don't know if you can see this, but Aleph is the middle horizontal bar in this Tree of Life. In the Tree of Life that is used by the Golden Dawn, Aleph is in a very different place. But this Tree of Life that I am using matches better, I think, the system of Hebrew letters, the Hebrew Aleph Bet, which is why I am using this one. Okay? Okay, so later in this series, after I've got my resources together, I've just recently ordered some texts. I might start adding some of the information about the Egyptian decans to this Decan Watt. I might, but I might not. We shall see. I might wait for another year or 2 before I add that in, or I might get ambitious and try adding a little bit into this Decan Watt with you. We shall see. Okay, so what we're doing is each week we're looking at one of the decans. We are focusing on the 3 cards associated with that decan, and then I will do a 3-card spread also to help us unpack that decan. And that 3-card spread is going to be inspired by the 3 cards for the decan. Does that make sense? Okay. And then, again, for the following week, we'll look at times and situations, personal and broadly, for example, in the news, which things resonate with what we have discovered from these cards. Then after 10 days or so, we will do the same thing for the next decan. And we will talk about how we have experienced the decan before we begin the next decan. Now, we could do that by video. I could just tell you what I think. Or we could do that in the community tab, in the community portion of our channel, in text. I'd like to open this up for your decision. I'd like to know what you think. Do you want to just see me blah 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 here on video? Do you want to have an open chat where we talk about things on the community portion of this channel? Let me know in the comments below. What do you want to see? How do you want us to work with this? Okay? And I really, really appreciate you, and I appreciate everything that you're doing. Yes, I appreciate your following me on this journey. I appreciate your doing the things like hitting the thumbs up button and subscribing to the channel, because you help us grow. You help other people find us, and they can join us on the Decan Walk too. You can join the Decan Walk at any point of the year. You don't have to start at Aries, the first Decan of Aries. If you came in, or if you come in on the third Decan of Virgo, which is more than half a year away, that's a fine place to start too. Yes? So, thank you for subscribing and helping other people find us. And also, thank you for commenting in the comment section. Yes? And in that section, please, again, tell me, how would you like to do follow-up from our experience of each one of these decans? I appreciate your input. Okay, so, friends, let us begin. We're going to begin every week with an oracle card. Why? Because I have a deck, I mentioned this in the announcement video, I have a deck called the Oracle of the Radiant Sun. And that oracle has a card for each planet, for each one of the zodiacal signs. So I can just pull out the oracle card matching the decan and take a peek at what she has to say for that decan for us. And interestingly, at least for this first one, I noticed that the information in the oracle card was practically the same as the information that I got from my two major resources that I am scanning for this series. And one of those resources is Decanics and Duads, the Zodiac with each sign by Sakoyan and Aker. And the other is going to be in the description box below. It's called the Decans, yes? So, really, it was fascinating. What she said really was a summary of what both of the authors of those two books said. So, I found it very helpful. So, let me show you the oracle card here for this decan, yes? Which is the first decan of Aries, which is ruled by Mars. So we have here Mars in Aries. Yes? And what does she say, the author of this deck, say about Mars in Aries? Yeah? So here on the card, what do we have? We have a person riding a horse. Yes? And it kind of looks like a horse race, maybe. You get that idea of energy, right? Racing, moving forward, leaping into the year. The thing that looks like a star in the upper left-hand corner, yeah, that is called the Greater Seal. There are 6 sets of creation. Yeah, she describes this seal as 6 sets of creation, or the 6 parts of creation. Yeah. And it's also the seal, a protector of all things. Now the horseshoe, for her, is a horseshoe of good fortune, you see there, and you can see the glyph for Aries right there in that horseshoe. So, she thinks this decan is energetic and impulsiveness in action. Yes? The need to get things done. And also the tendency to start many things without necessarily having the wherewithal to finish all of those things. Yeah, the starting of many things does not indicate or point to the completion of all those things. Yes? Acting before thinking is something that is typical for this decan of the zodiac, which could include me starting this decan walk by the feeling of inspiration that I suddenly got about a week ago when as I was going to sleep, after having pulled my card for the day of the Ace of Wands, I thought, I could do a decan walk, and I leapt into it before I really thought it all out. This decan is ruled by Mars, right? So Martians, not Martians as in aliens, but people of Mars, the planet Mars, are resilient. They're healthy. They're hardy. They tend to win more than they lose. But because they're not all that careful, they do lose. But they do win more than they lose. They're competitive. They can be leaders. They like leading other people. Yeah, they have pride in their abilities. And they want to be more productive and quicker than everybody else because they are, again, competitive. They might have challenges that require courage, and they might feel like they've got to prove themselves because, remember, this is the ego being born into the universe, and it feels like it's got to prove itself, its place here in the physical plane. They will be very ambitious in tackling the unknown as well. And they enthusiastically lead other people into new ventures, whether it's safe or not. They're going to lead people forward, right? And that's what they're happy doing. That's what they want to do. And again, they like starting lots of different stuff, right? So that's one idea from this card. Now, I'm also going to pull a little bit of information directly from here right now. Yes, because the way that this author describes this decan, I thought, was concise. Yes, so let me quote a little bit of these authors' text. Yes, and I quote on page 4. Although these natives, the people born under this decan, may be impulsive, impatient, and quick-tempered, they are also blessed with great courage and the ability to make a new start whenever necessary. Yes? So there's that idea of when you get caught in a bind, you're able to make a new start. It's not just random, I can do this, and this always. There could be a reason or a need to make that new start, right? So back to the book. One more sentence. They initiate things that others only dream of doing. Yeah, so it's not just that they are random. There might be other people around that say, gosh, I wish I could do that. But when Aries, especially the first decan of Aries, gets that, I wish I could do that, they start doing it. Yes? Not out of a vacuum, maybe. Maybe out of a milieu of unconscious, collective unconscious desire to start something. Have you ever noticed something? Well, okay, let's talk briefly about inventions. Let's talk about the telephone. Yes? I don't know if you know this, but Graham Bell was not the only one to invent a telephone. At around the same time, there are at least one or two other people who did it. Graham Bell happened to be the one who got the patent and was the one who got the accolades, but there was an unconscious desire in the collective unconscious perhaps, or humming under the surface of the collective milieu, which was calling for a way of communicating over distances. And at least two, if not three people rose to that rose with that idea of, I can do this. Aries decan 1, and one of them really did succeed, but others did it too. Does that make sense? So, Aries starting many things is not just being random or disorganized. There could be an inspiration or a drive coming from the unconscious, coming from the divine, coming from somewhere. Does that make sense? Okay, so friends, next step. So the author of that book also says that Aries, this first decan of Aries, has a need. And that need is to really get to know themselves, where their uniqueness Oh, I'm sorry. No, that's not from this book. This is from the other book, the Decans, which I will have in the description box below. Yeah. At the end of each decan in that book, the author has a one-liner that says what each decan needs, and the needs for this decan, for that author, are to really get to know themselves and where their uniqueness can lead others. To know themselves, so there's a self-inquiry portion, and how their unique qualities can be can inform their leadership of others. Yes? Okay, so we've got all of these ideas for this decan right now. Now, let me pull up the 3 cards for this decan. Now you can see the center is the Ace of Wands, which represents this decan. Yes, which is the first decan of Aries, which means that cardinal fire's vital attributes are entering our world right now. On the sides, we have 2 other cards. On the left, we have the Hierophant, and on the right, we have the Emperor. Why? Because the associations that I make for this decan, and through the system that I'm working with, the Hierophant is Aries. And before you get your panties in a bunch, just flow with me with this, yes? The Hierophant is Aries, but the Emperor is Mars. And I'm not just making this up, I'm following the Sefer Yeserat that I mentioned. Yes? The Emperor is associated with the Hebrew letter Dalet, which points to Mars. The Hierophant is associated with the Hebrew letter He, which points to the zodiacal sign of Aries. Okay? Okay, so what does that mean? Well, let's start off with the central card, the Ace of Wands. Yes? The Ace of Wands, again, Mars and Aries. It's cardinal fire's vital attributes entering our world right now. They're highly competitive and they're action-oriented. We talked about that. So the key word might be action. Yeah? Starting things, action in the world. They're not just thinking, they're not planning, they're doing, right? Things started are not always finished. We might want to remember that, which might be a good thing. Yeah, sometimes we start things that should not be finished. Also, they try to prove themselves through action. Yes, they try to prove themselves through action. Just a moment, I made a little bit of a mistake setting things up and I have something blocking my notes. Just a second. Okay, that was also an excuse for me to get a sip of coffee, but the cable for my microphone was laying in front of my notes. Okay, so yes, here we are. The Ace of Wands is the courageous one for me. They can make a new start at any time. Yes, they are initiators. Which is often what we think of when we think of the Ace of Wands, right? That hand holding the wand up. This is the divine holding up something for us to grab. Or it's us grabbing something out in the world, and we are then the initiators of doing that thing. Yes? Now, that doesn't mean we're careful. We could be reckless. Now, one of my students points out the leaves that seem to be falling off of that wand in the center. Do you see it? That's because maybe we grabbed that stick too quickly and not carefully, and we shook loose some of the leaves. Yeah? There could be some foolishness involved. We could be impatient. We could be quick-tempered. That's something to be cautious of. But upright, when this card is upright, which is how we're going to read this card, we might ask what impulse or desire is trying to begin. with this card. And Mars is in its domicile of Aries. Mars has another domicile in Scorpio, but here it's in the fire domicile. This is fiery Mars. It's clean ignition. Yeah, that spark lights the flame cleanly, right? There's pure initiative. It's not cluttered by thought or plans. It's pure initiative. It's action that begins without resistance. There's not that stop, start. We're going to go. Yes? It's a creative spark. It's the first motion. And our will knows where to go. Yeah, our willpower, our will knows where to go. Now, aces, all aces for me live in the Sephiroth of Keter, which is the initiator, the beginning. It's the divine coming, the beginning of the path into the manifestation. So this impulse in Keter of the tree of life is the impulse to begin something. It's not differentiated yet. It hasn't gotten form yet. It hasn't even gotten much thought around it yet. It's the impulse to begin. Does that make sense? So that card is flanked by two major arcana cards. And let's go into Aries first, because that Aries card, the Hierophant card, is going to be with us for the rest of this Aries season, right? The card in the middle will change every decan, and the planet will change, but the Hierophant is going to be with us for almost a month. Right? So, let's look at the Hierophant. Who is the Hierophant? Well, for me, the Hierophant is associated again with the Hebrew letter He, which is the letter which points towards a window, or of the breath, Ruach, the breath of life, in the divine tetragram. You know the tetragram? Yod He Vav. I'm sorry, it should go this way. Yod He Vav He. Yes? Well, actually, for you, it should go this way. For you, this is... Wait a second. For you, left to right, it goes right to left. So yes, Yod He Vav He. Yeah? So the two He's, they're the feminine principle of the divine. The first He is the most feminine principle, but it's associated with what looks like a guy sitting in a chair called the Hierophant, right? The boss guy, the spiritual boss guy. The letter He is also the taking and the giving of self. So that's a quality for our active first decan of Aries, and for Aries as a whole. Aries does give of itself to others as a leader, as an inspirer, as the inspired inspirer. Yes? It's revelation. It is creation. It's the expression and life force. And remember, Aries is full of life force. Now, if we add the rune of the Elder Futhark, that would match up with card number 5. The 5th rune is Raido. And Raido is the rune which points to new ways of life. Good for Aries, right? New perspectives. But also rhythms and cycles. This is the beginning of a cycle, the beginning of a new rhythm. Also, communication and reconciliation. I'm not sure where that lands here for the Ace of Wands, but the others do make sense, right? A new cycle, new perspectives, new ways in life. Positive traits for Mars in Aries, because remember, Aries is ruled by Mars. Positive traits for this decan of Aries through the Hierophant is leadership qualities, unity, kindness, and generosity. Now, when we think of Aries in Hebrew astrology, and there is Hebrew astrology in esoteric Hebrew mysticism, Aries for them, because I am not Jewish, but from my research for Jewish astrology, points towards the Paschal Lamb, which is what? It's the lamb that was slaughtered to save the Jewish people, the Hebrews, from death in Egypt, which was one of the major steps in their freedom from slavery. Yes? So, it's the sacrifice during Pesach, the original Passover, and also freedom from slavery. It's also the fire where that lamb is sacrificed to the divine. Remember, when there was a temple in Jerusalem, in Passover, lambs were sacrificed to the divine as a commemorative of freedom from slavery. It's also redemption. When we think of Abraham and Isaac, where God provided a ram as a substitute sacrifice. Yes, so there's that substitute sacrifice. It's redemption. It's freedom from slavery. Those are things to be thought of when we think of the first decan or even all of Aries. There's a freedom to that. There's a freedom from a bondage, a freedom of divine blessing and kindness and generosity that can shade or color this first decan of Aries, as well as the next two. Now, let's look at the Emperor. The Emperor, I did not mention this, yes? The Hierophant, back to the Hierophant, because it is associated with He, it is on the path, for me, between Keter and Chokmah. Between Keter, remember we placed the Ace of Wands in Keter, so between Keter and Chokmah, for you it would be between Keter and, so this is on the right-hand side, so yes, between Keter and Chokmah, between the divine unity, the initial undifferentiated divine essence coming into and breaking into the physical world. And an alarm just went off, and let me turn it off. What else can happen? Okay, so, yes, between Keter and Chokmah. Chokmah is wisdom. So the Hierophant points towards the path between the divine coming into the world and the wisdom that we receive. So it connects that Ace of Wands to wisdom, which is, I think, a beautiful thing. Yes? So, now, going back to the Emperor is associated with, for me, Daleth, which is associated with the planet Mars. And what is Daleth? Daleth, the Hebrew letter, is the Hebrew letter for a door. A door. It's the entrance into the wheel of the year, you could say. It's also the helper of the burdened. It's also an empty receptacle for divine blessings. So we take this Daleth, and it's a door to enter. It's a vessel to hold divine blessings. And from those blessings, we're able to help others. It's receiving. It's the openness to receive. And it's humility, as well as transition. Thinking of doors as a way to transition from one place to another, yes? And Daleth resides on the path between goodness. I need to, here. So yes, it resides on the path between, I've got a lot of information in front of me, between Keter and Tiphereth, between the divine emanation, undifferentiated into the world, and Tiphereth, which is beauty, and also maybe even the heart. Yes? So, energy pouring right into the hub of the tree of life, which can spread out into the rest of the tree, which is something to remember. Yeah, at Tiphereth connects to every other Sephirah. So that energy pours down into Tiphereth through Mars, through this emperor, which can then spread out to the rest of the tree. The rune that it would be associated with is Ansuz, yeah, which is what? It's the rune of messages. It's the rune for inspiration. Very good for the Ace of Wands. It's the rune of enthusiasm, also good for the Ace of Wands. It's also visions and health. Aries are very healthy. They're robust. It's harmony, truth, and wisdom. So we've got the truth and wisdom, like a waterfall flowing down from Kether into Tiphereth, into the heart, with the emperor, which is not something we often associate with the emperor, yes? Now, interestingly, because the Hierophant is also associated with the planet Mars is on the Hebrew letter, in the tree of life Sephiroth of Gevurah, which is severity, which kind of does line up with the emperor, right? So, we've got another Sephirah activated here with Gevurah, the Sephirah of severity. Yes? So Gevurah is what? It's divine might and the power to set boundaries. That's what the emperor can do. And that makes, I think, perfect sense for the emperor as well. So as the path from Kether, from the tree of life, Kether, where the Ace of Wands is sitting, yeah, down into the heart of Tiphereth, we pass through the invisible. Now just place this in the back of your mind. If it doesn't make sense, maybe it will make sense later in your life. But we pass through what is called the invisible Sephirah of Da'at. And Da'at is the Sephirah of knowledge, information. So, the emperor, as it passes down to the heart, passes through the seat of knowledge, which is invisible on the tree. So how does that inform our Ace of Wands? Maybe as we do those actions, maybe we do pass through knowledge, information. Now, some qualities of Mars for Jewish astrology, we have things like blood, war, but also strength, power, and judgment. So, the emperor is adding to the Ace of Wands strength, power, and judgment, I think. And maybe we want to avoid things like war and blood, and hopefully this is not an indication that what's happening in the Middle East now is going to develop into a larger war. Let's pray for that. Yes, let's pray for a limitation on the warlike attributes of the emperor and more towards the strength and judgment and organizational qualities of the emperor. Yes? So these are qualities that we can hold for ourselves in this time of the first Decan of Aries. The Ace of Wands, informed by both the Emperor and the Hierophant. Yes, by the positive traits of generosity and kindness and freedom and the redemption of the Hierophant and the positive, perhaps, sides of Mars, which are enthusiasm, inspiration, but also judgment and power, and moving through information into the heart. As we come down into manifestation, as we do the work of the Ace of Wands, of inspired action and leading other people and discovering who we are. That's a lot of stuff, right? So that's why we've got 10 days to meditate on this. Now, friends, I used these 3 cards to create a spread. Yes? So, the 3 questions I came up with are, the one inspired by the Hierophant was, what divine energy can we channel during these 10 days of the first decan of Aries? The question that I pulled from the Ace of Wands was, what impulse is ready to begin? Right? The Ace of Wands, the impulse to begin. And then the question I pulled from the Emperor was, how can we organize that impulse? Do those questions make sense? Let me say them once more. What divine energy can we channel? What impulse is ready to begin? And how can we organize that impulse? Yes? And so I decided to use, for the Aries time, a deck called the Light Seers Tarot. Because for me, the Light Seers Tarot feels Aries to me. Yeah, there's a passion to the Light Seers Tarot that feels Aries. There's a youth, a newness to the Light Seers Tarot that I think matches Aries very well. So the 3 cards that I pulled, I shuffled the cards, I did a regular spread for those 3 questions. In answer were these 3 cards. And you can see from left to right, we have the Queen of Cups, the Chariot, and the 7 of Cups. Yes? So let's answer those questions step by step. We'll answer those questions in 2 layers very quickly. We'll look at the first layer of just those pictures, right? So, divine energy we can travel. We can channel. You can see that woman there, right? She is up to her chest in water. So she is the Queen of Cups. She is water of water. And she looks like she is channeling divine energy to me. Yes? But what is the quality of that divine energy? It's the quality of emotion. Yes? She's channeling emotional energy in perhaps to her third eye. Yeah? I can see a dot there on her third eye which looks activated. She is surrounded by water energy, the energy of emotion. And she is open to receiving, and she's also open, I think, to sharing, right? She is open to connecting spiritually and emotionally with the divine and with, I think, people around her. So, what divine energy can we channel? It's that emotional, unconscious connection to the divine. Okay, and then we look at the Chariot. What impulse is ready to begin? Well, when we think of the Chariot, you see the rider on the chariot on top, right? And the 2 horses, the white horse and the black horse. So often what we think of when we see this kind of card is we are ready to move forward on our path, right? Just like an Aries would. Although the Chariot is not associated with Aries for me, but still, we're moving forward with our 2 horses, and we want to keep our 2 different horses, which are colored differently, going in the same direction so that we don't spin out, right? And then, how can we organize our impulses? Well, we've got the 7 of Cups, which means which to me, it's the idea of making a selection. Yeah, we can see this guy here. There are a bunch of possibilities. These cups are all upturned, they're upside down, and they are all hiding different things. And so how can we organize our impulse? I see it's by appraising what is before us and making an emotionally informed choice. Does that make sense? So that's my first layer of reading of these 3 cards. But I'm going to give you another layer of reading. Because you know me, I like to talk. So, let's go back to that Queen of Cups. I'm sorry, the Queen of Cups. For me, astrologically, the Queen of Cups is associated with Scorpio. Yeah? Queens for me are fixed signs, which are Scorpio for water. And they also include Venus. Because for me, the queens are all expressions of Venusian interpersonal relationships and also beauty and receptiveness. But in a very powerful, fixed sign kind of way. Yes? But remember, Scorpio is ruled by Mars. So we have Mars in Scorpio with Venus. Venus being the queenly aspect and the fixed water aspect being Mars in Scorpio. So we've got fixed water here, informed by Venusian qualities. So what does that mean? What divine energy can we channel? Well, we have magnetism. Yeah, we can draw people to us to be able to lead. Remember the Aries quality of leadership. We have the presence to draw people to us. Our passions are a little bit obsessive, so we have that drive and emotional energy to support our work in the Ace of Wands. And because we have that fixed Scorpion attribute here available to us, we also have that determined pursuit of the desired. So, what divine energy can we channel? That determined pursuit on top of our own magnetism and our own presence and our obsessive passion to do the thing that we are starting. Yes? Now, what impulse is ready to begin? Well, for me, the Chariot is associated with Gemini, which means Gemini ruled by Mercury. We have Mercury's in Gemini. We have the mutable air's vital attributes entering our spread here. Mutable air with Gemini. Because this card is associated with the Hebrew letter Zayin, it lives on the path between Chokmah to Gevurah. Between Chokmah to Gevurah. So, let me pop up a tree of life here, which shows you all of the parts that were lit up by this spread, by these cards that we're looking at today. Yes? So, at the very top, you see Kether. That was lit up by the Ace of Wands, right? The Hierophant lit up the path from Kether to Chokmah. Yeah? The Emperor lit up the path from Kether down to Tipreth, down into the heart. Now, this Chariot card lights up the path which was what? Pointed towards and was stimulated. That's the word I was looking for. Stimulated by the Hierophant. The Chariot moves from Chokmah down to Gevurah. Right? And Gevurah is where the Emperor lived. Do you remember? Mars lives in Gevurah. So we've got that wonderful connection of Kether to Chokmah down to Gevurah, where Mars lives as the Emperor, in addition to the Emperor being on the path from Kether to the heart in Tipreth and beauty. So these are all things maybe to hold in the back of our minds as we go through our 10 days here. Now, because we have the letter Zayin here, we have things like sustenance and nourishment. We have weapons of the sword of Zayin, which point towards things like spiritual warfare, but also balance. You have the balance between the two pillars, the pillar of mercy and the pillar of severity. There's that central pillar, which is pointed towards by Zayin. Doesn't live there, but it does point towards there with Gemini. We also have the rune Gebel, being the seventh letter of the Hebrew alphabet. We also can pick out the seventh rune, which is Gebel, which looks like an X, which is a gift. It's also divine generosity. It's also partnership and harmony. Remember those two horses and also the twins of Gemini, the harmony between those two twins, and it's loyalty. Yeah, loyalty to ourselves and our impulses, loyalty to the thing that we've chosen to do, and also loyalty to other people. So the positive attributes to Gemini here are what? It's flexibility, it's intelligence. Remember, the path of the emperor leads through that invisible sephra of da'at, of knowledge. So Gemini also points towards intelligence, the intelligence to be able to take advantage of that, maybe. It's also communication and adaptability. So this chariot moving forward can move around things that do spring up in the path, right? We're not stuck on one path, and if something springs up, we're going to crash. Yeah, we have that adaptability to flow around obstacles as well. And Gemini can reconcile, especially in Hebrew astrology, can reconcile opposites into a unified whole. So the impulse that is ready to begin can come from maybe the reconciliation of opposites, bringing things into a whole, moving down that central path, being adaptable. The balance and balancing severity and mercy together to find the central path. Okay, let's move on to the Seven of Cups. Because the Seven of Cups, for me, is the first decan of Pisces, which is ruled by Jupiter. So we have Jupiter in Pisces, which gives us mutable waters, vital attributes entering our spread. So we had cardinal water with the chariot. We had cardinal air with the chariot. I'm sorry. Let me start that again. Okay, so we had mutable air with Gemini in the chariot, and now we have mutable water with the Seven of Cups. Period. End. Yes. So we've got mutable air and mutable water. So how can we organize this impulse? Clearly better than I can organize my thoughts as I'm trying to talk to you about these astrological associations to the cards. We can engage our mutable qualities of water as well as our fixed qualities of water in the Queen of Cups. Yes? And upright, this Seven of Cups means to me many emotional possibilities, which I think resonates with many people who read the Seven of Cups as diverse possibilities that we appear in this cloud before us. If we think of the Smith-Waite card, right? There's an introspective and meditative quality to the Seven of Cups for me. It's visualization and maybe even clairvoyant faculties. Being able to see through the mist what could be possible. You know, the multiverse appears before us clairvoyantly in the Seven of Cups. And we can tap into the accumulated wisdom of our subconscious resources here. So perception might be a key word for the Seven of Cups for me. We can comprehend the esoteric to some extent through the Seven of Cups as well. So the question I might ask with the Seven of Cups is, what emotional options or meanings need reevaluation? Because just because we see all of these possibilities doesn't mean that we know what to do with all of them, right? So we want to evaluate and reevaluate and try to select the things that we're going to do by evaluating through meditation and the perception of our inner eye through the unconscious lens. And Jupiter, while it's in its domicile, gives us the idea of our imagination opening. Yes? Seeing emotional possibilities in multiplicity. And having vision through our heart, through feeling. Because we have very weak or no boundaries. But then we're asked, how can we organize our impulse by first seeing these possibilities and then perceiving the qualities of each one and then being able to select which ones to follow, right? Because we have been given through divine generosity many possibilities. Does that make sense? So, while we were looking at some very fiery attributes in the three cards for this Decan, the Ace of Wands, the Martian Emperor, and the Aries Hierophant, here, when we got the answer to the questions, what we've got is an airy center, a thoughtful center, a mind directing itself. When we think of what impulse is ready to begin, with the assistance of emotions and our inner knowledge and our unconscious wisdom. By a balance, I think, of fixed water and mutable water. The Queen of Cups and the Seven of Cups. Because those could be the two aspects that the charioteer in the center are pulling together, yes? That magnetism and presence and obsessive passion of the Queen of Cups on one side, and then the open, borderless, uncontained, broad possibilities of the Seven of Cups. So the charioteer in the middle brings those two qualities together to move us forward. Does that make sense? So, how is that going to inform our 10 days from now? Yes, for this period of 10 days. That's a lot of information to absorb, I know. But we got 10 days to do that. Yes, and see where things in our lives echo and resonate. And then maybe we can share. And tell me how you'd like to share. Again, in the comments below. I'd like to hear, what do you think? How would you like to share? So friends, thank you. Thank you for joining me on this journey. Thank you for beginning this journey with me. And now, as always, I wish you love, joy, well-being, and pure awareness. Thank you.